Hello, and welcome to Shedding the Bitch Radio, where you can discuss, debate, and get advice on how to discover and shed the bitches of fear, insecurity, self-doubt, and negative mindsets so you can realize your dreams and life purpose and create and accelerate the riches you want in life. Join us here live every Tuesday at noon Eastern and dialogue with us at 818-572-2910. You can also chat with us at Blog Talk Radio /SheddingTheBitch or share your stories on our website at SheddingTheBitch.com. Whatever the bitch is that's holding you back from living your life to the fullest, it's not worth giving up the riches in life that you deserve. So call in now and let Bernadette Bowes know what's holding you back. 818-572-2910.
Welcome, everyone, to Shedding the Bitch Radio. And yes, I'm Bernadette Bowes. And you see our smiley guest, Travis Taylor. How are you, Travis?
Doing amazing. Thank you, Bernadette.
You are welcome. I'm so excited that you're here with us today. And before we dive into all of that, although our conversation will be about broken open. That's right. Yeah, broken open. And I love that because immediate visual, broken open. But before we get to that, I want to thank our existing listeners and viewers because you have started to really elevate and escalate and accelerate the visibility of our show, both through Blog Talk Radio, iTunes, Stitcher, and anywhere you stream your podcast, but also on our YouTube channel, Bernadette Bowes Shed the BTV. And I so appreciate it. And please continue to like, share, subscribe, follow, and especially rate so we can be sure that we're getting in front of as many eyes as possible so they too can create the riches in life that they deserve. At the same time, for our new listeners and viewers, welcome. We are so happy that you are here. Thank you very much. Sit tight. Our episodes are always quite intriguing and yet very inspiring, motivational, and educational. So you learn a great deal while at the same time getting to know some great experts in all areas of your career. Maybe you own a business or life. And again, if you like the program or you have a comment or feedback, please be sure to like, follow, subscribe, and even rate our shows on any one of the many platforms out there, especially Blog Talk Radio, iTunes, and sheddingthebitch.com, as well as our YouTube channel, Bernadette Bowes Shed the BTV. All right. I do want to say that this episode is being brought to you by Ball of Fire Coaching, which is a leadership transformational and success practice helping professional women, both corporate and entrepreneurial, to really declare, own, and achieve their goals so they create riches in life that they deserve. You can go to balloffirecoaching.com to learn more. All right, I think that's all of our announcements. Let's get into this. And I need to set this up and tell you a story about our guest, Travis. According to our guest, we all have a capacity within us to shift our thinking, align to our spiritual sources, if that is your goal, or simply become happier and healthier by letting go of old stories or unconscious beliefs. In line with the Last Breath book, our guest Travis Taylor wrote a chapter called Broken Open, which is the story in part of his mother's suicide and his involvement in helping her plan it and her subsequent visitation of him when he was in treatment for alcohol and drug addiction, which was the first time he fully recognized that we live beyond our death. However, the most important message of the story is how our adversities and his own, in particular, dying when born, struggling with PTSD, ADHD, addiction, coming out, getting HIV, struggling with injuries most of his life, have been synchronistic experiences that he needed to experience in order to learn and grow as a soul. Later in life, realized he was clairvoyant and had the capacity to help people heal. The more he worked with people at the spiritual level, the more he realized that our circumstances are designed by us. so that we can learn to be our best selves, learn to shed our limiting thinking about who we are, what we are capable of, and what we deserve. We all have the capacity within us to shift our thinking, align to our spiritual sources if that is our goal, or simply become happier and healthier. Again, by letting go of old stories and unconscious beliefs. This is what I want you to be listening for, because his story in itself is amazing and we can learn so much from, and we're going to. But you should listen for whatever your circumstances are. The universe is conspiring in your favor to bring the event most helpful for you to learn and grow as a soul to you. Sharing vulnerabilities and challenges with others is a superpower. It is not a weakness. I love that. Love it, love it. You're going to learn how to connect to your own individual and unique intuitive capabilities. And then sometimes to move forward in our lives, you need to go back and heal traumas, taking a look without staring too long in order to embrace the lesson and move on. Otherwise, we keep experiencing it in new ways. Amen to that. All right, so let me introduce you to Travis. Travis is an award-winning host of the Divine Insight Show, an intuitive channel, Reiki master, yoga teacher, life coach, and best-selling author. With humor, compassion, love, and inspirational wisdom, Travis shares simple yet powerful techniques to help seekers access their own unique intuitive abilities and tools to help them align to their best selves. Travis, an attorney, an adventurer, and athlete, spent most of his career working in human resources for the city of Seattle. In 2007, while in a Reiki class, he recognized he had spiritual, intuitive gifts that inspired him to help others heal. In his new book, The Last Breath, which he co-authored with mediums around the world, is an international bestseller. Again, that's The Last Breath. Clients describe Travis as a soul whisperer who provides a safe space for them to heal and become the person they have always wanted to be. Using powerful intuitive abilities, Travis quickly determines what is holding people back from being their most empowered selves. I want you to go to, while we're talking, divineinsight.com and learn all about him. All right, that was quite an intro there, Travis. I am so happy you are here. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much. And with that story introduction, I feel like we can just go ahead and cut the show off. We've told everybody.
No. We told them what you've been through. We haven't told them how they can leverage all your lessons learned and tips and tricks and whatnot to being absolutely wonderful today.
Here's the book. Unfortunately, I don't have a hard copy yet, but this is what it looks like. It was just released. Actually, we had a wonderful online launch event on Monday where we have these mediums get together, and every hour we were doing live readings and talking about the stories and chapters and giving away raffle prizes. So those are still available for folks. So if folks go online and get the book, they can message me the receipt information and get into a raffle, because most of our authors and mediums have offered services for free as raffle prizes. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, so if folks go to The Last Breath book on Facebook, the Facebook page, they can actually get updated information. We have mediums twice a day now that are going to be on at 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. providing readings and talking about the book. And we're going to do that for several weeks because it seems to be doing quite well, becoming an international bestseller and a bestseller before we even launched the hard copy. So it was so exciting for us to share what's clearly a very powerful and important message for people. Very inspirational stories. So it's very exciting. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right. The Last Breath book on Facebook. Check that out. And you might need to remind me, I'm going to want to bring that around at the end as well. Okay.
Sure.
So you have had quite the life and experiences, and for anyone that is even thinking about, oh my God, I'm struggling today, and yet nothing nearly as, hard even painful as what you've been through. So first, I'd love to understand when you had that clairvoyant, encounter in that Reiki class, and you all of a sudden realized that, there was something more to you than what you had known. What did that do to your ability to just really look at all the situations that you have been through and to overcome is a overused word sometimes, but that's what it is. What was it that really allowed you to just keep pushing, because many would give up?
Yeah, thank you. And what I didn't mention in the intro about my story is my mother committed suicide. She had cancer and she was in the dying process, and she asked me to help her plan her death. And it was a very difficult thing to do, and at a time when we needed to keep it from the family. But my brother also struggled with addiction and mental health issues. He committed suicide also, and this was about 4 years ago.
Wow.
And so, with me struggling with my own ability to sort of cope with my addiction processes and seeing the world in a way that, when you don't necessarily feel that other people can't see the things that you see, if that makes sense. Like, so when you have these feelings or about what's going on in the world, and you might want to express them and people are telling you you're crazy, a lot of times we tend to keep these things inside. So when I got sober the first time and went into treatment, it was after that I had something more that my spirit was actually calling for. And I wouldn't have consciously described it that way at the time. I would just say, I had this introduction to this woman who did energy medicine and it sounded fun, which was true. And I think that is when something is exciting and enthralling to us, it's our spirit asking for expression. And so I took this class mostly because it sounded fun. Like I said, it was become a Reiki master in 2.5 days, for $600 or whatever. And I was like, well, law school was 3 years and, $120,000, and I'm still learning that. So I sort of went in, both feet jumped in, and it was very fun. So what happened in that class was you're attuned, which is a level of healing, which is basically expressed in your body. We were attuned to the first level of Reiki, which is a Japanese form of hands-on healing. And the first attunement is to heal at the physical level. So our instructions were to work on another participant who was a stranger to me. And he was laying on a table, like a massage table. I was standing behind him. My hands were on his shoulders. And the instructions were follow your intuition. And I was like, well, I don't know what that means, but whatever. And then say whatever comes up for you, just express it. And I was like, okay, well, I can do that. So I was standing behind him, my hands were on his shoulders, and all of a sudden I just said, well, I think I feel like I'm just gonna feel like I'm an x-ray machine. I'll just scan his body. And in that moment, what I realized is that I could see in my mind's eye, which is our third eye, his bones, his blood, his tissue, and much like you see on an x-ray, it was gray and white for the bones. And then I just scanned, and then I got to this area just below here, and I saw this red blob, which surprised me. Red felt like danger, something felt wrong, and I had a thought. My expression was, what's that? And the word pancreas came to my mind in capital letters with exclamation points. And then I sort of wondered what the pancreas did. And then all of a sudden I knew that it regulated glucose in the blood and that his blood sugar was way off. And I told that to him. And I said, what's going on? You have this thing. And, I never had anatomy. I was a lawyer. And so, but I knew I was right. I just absolutely knew I was right. And so he said, yes, I have adult onset diabetes. And then in that very moment, my instructor, who is standing about 15 feet away, turns and looks at me and says, Travis, you're in his pancreas right now, right? And I was like, how did she know that? He's over there. I'm standing behind him, but we had just talked about his pancreas. So what I realized was that, wow, I do have some capacity when I create space between my thoughts to communicate and interact with energy in the body. They call that medical intuition. And I was like, okay, well, this is fun. I can't not do this more. So over time, from then 2007, I was just grabbing everyone that would come onto my table. My colleagues in volleyball would say, can you do that thing to my elbow that you do, or whatever. And what I realized is that the universe was bringing to me clients to help explain to me and show me why we were here, as beings, as souls. And then I would start getting information about past life traumas and people who actually had uh, blocked energy bodies and just all these things. And so as I realized, both working with clients and in my own healing process, that all of the circumstances that sort of, one perspective would be to say beat me down, like having ADHD, which is incredibly challenging to navigate life,
Sure.
and PTSD, where you're always on and jumpy and like agitated. So how do you manage that?
Right.
Getting HIV when I was in active addiction, and then having a challenging coming out process, and always seeming to be injured when I tried to express myself physically and athletes and things. It was like, wow, all of these things, people might say would break me down or break me apart or
Reasonable.
break my heart, right?
Reasonable.
And I realized that it wasn't that I was broken down, broken apart, had a broken heart. It was, I was broken open in a way that allowed me to recognize that I was, one, much more powerful than I ever thought I could be.
Wow.
When I allow myself the opportunity to align to what my gifts are.
Yep.
And my power. And I realized that the things that I had the most shame around, my addiction with alcohol and meth, and not being my full self and happy self in my life, and the shame, when I actually shared that with people, it wasn't judgment that I got, it was support.
Absolutely.
And love.
Absolutely.
And when I worked with clients, I often see their ancestors will come through in spirit. And it's a very similar message often. One, we're not dead, we're fine, we love you, we're gonna support you. And they often have cheerleading pom-poms they show me. So what they show me is, we're here for you. Yeah. And what I recognized is that we often, a lot of people say, God, what's wrong with me? What did I do in a past life, to deserve this? So it's a very limited thinking mindset that people have. So anyway.
So do you really think that do majority of the people recognize that it's a past life and that they're being, kind of taught a lesson until they've learned it, and then only then will, it goes away, or do they just kind of get into a state of victimhood where they're just like, oh, woe is me, why me, why me? And what does it take for them to get jolted out?
Yeah, that's such a great question. So what I actually wrote, I have a couple of workshops that I've taught called Breaking Patterns. And so I talk about the cycle of the event, the reaction, the emotion, the frequency, the attraction. Yeah. So that's how it all works, right? So I would tell you, is a lot of people don't necessarily know that what they may be experiencing is the result of a past life event that is causing what I call an echo in this life. What they feel is an expression of something that they might not be conscious of. So maybe they feel like they're afraid to leave the house, or they have trouble with things around their neck, or they try to meditate and they fall asleep, or they can't focus, or there's some barrier or block to them living their full and complete selves. So that's when people tend to find me in random ways, because they're like, I don't know what's going on. I keep trying, they're making effort, but the effort seems to be, there's some ceiling to it. Yeah, so I think that some people can tend to feel like a victim because their circumstances in their mind have told them that that's true for them.
Right.
What we need to recognize is that that's a story, that's a pattern, and that if you shift your thinking around rather why that happened to me is how I was involved in creating it, you can shift your responsibility in changing it and making a change, right? So once you have that awareness, you then are open to the universe showing you how to shift it.
Yep. Yeah, because you're getting practical. I'm always one to say you need to get practical, you need to get logical, you need to get unemotional when it comes to dealing with something. So what you just said was just hit me about just the fact that you need to look at what your role was in creating that pattern, because that's the logical is way, instead of playing victimhood, it more like, okay, so I've done something that has created this, and that's getting practical, that's getting logical, that's just looking in your history and really kind of making note of it. That is awesome.
Yeah, and when you're able to start asking yourself those questions, you can get through maybe the surface thinking and get down to your subconscious thinking or subconscious programming,
right?
Which might say things like, I deserve to suffer. Some people want to fight against the suffering, but then they keep creating situations of suffering and wondering why.
Yeah.
And so as an intuitive, when I do healing work, at a distance even works the same as if somebody's in front of me, is I can see the energy frequency of that pattern of thinking in the body, and we can go to the source actually, and it might be their own circumstances of betrayal in this life, for example, or whatever it might be. But we actually can go and shift that narrative and say, how do all of these things that are happening, quote, to me, serve me? How have they served me? What is it that I have learned from them? Because until you learn that lesson completely, you're going to keep facing it. That's the way it works. We actually, when people ask me, well, why do we come back? And so imagine sitting at a table, an etheric table, and you're deciding, because we're eternal beings, we cannot die. Our spirit just doesn't die. We just continue to come back. And most of us are rather stubborn, so we like to learn in a third dimensional, concrete way. The reality, I can feel, I have emotions. Think about sitting at a table with all the people you respect in spirit, maybe an archangel, Michael, maybe God, maybe Buddha, maybe a loved one or a shaman. And you say, I really want to learn self-love. I really want to get it. And I want to learn unconditional love, or I want to learn compassion. You seem to get it pretty well. You over here at the table. And so would you mind if when I come back, could you be a guide for me? Could you support me and help me when I need it? And they're like, sure, it's really only that much of time for them in spirit because we're eternal, right? So my 70, 80, 90, 100-year life is relatively short. And so essentially how it works is there are spirit beings who know you better than you do, who are sitting here whispering in love, take a right. Take that next right, please. I love you so much. Please take a right. And maybe you'll say, I feel like I want to take a right, but I'm just going to take a left. And they're like, we still love you. Please take the next right. Please take the next right. And they're trying to help us on our path. And sometimes we listen and sometimes we don't, but it's never out of judgment. And they're not tapping their feet waiting for us.
Right. But you also said, and I want to make sure this is clear, because you also said that you could ask those spiritual, souls that when you come back, could you be my guide? But you don't mean come back like in the next life, because someone wants help now. They could look to those sources in order to ask for love and help and guidance, right?
Yeah, thank you. What I meant was, before we incarnate, we make an agreement, a soul agreement with a being or beings to be our primary guides. And then when we're born, those beings are available and are always with us to support us. And a lot of us can look back at our lives and think about circumstances where, think about mine. I came into this world 2 months early, umbilical cord wrapped around my neck, and I choked to death. In the womb, I was scared, I was angry, I was, I died, right? And so that was the first thing that happened. And so I laugh about it now because it's like, oh my goodness, I was like, no, peace out, we're out of here.
Right.
But the reality was that shaped a lot of my gifts. It shaped my ability and capacity to see beyond the third dimensional realm in some way, because I had a death experience. And, we all can access our intuition, and we all can ask for that guidance that's available for us. But what we don't do particularly well, because we're unpracticed and we don't remember, is how to listen.
listen to ourselves, listen to the universe, listen to
listen to the messages, listen to our intuition. You know, we're a very, and they call this, you know, in some sense, I'll get a little bit esoteric, the yin and the yang, the balance of power and quiet. So we live a very yang lifestyle, a very masculine oriented environment, capitalism and our work environments that celebrates powerful action oriented movement, you know, goal setting and stuff. That's very sun, it's warm, and that's one aspect. But what we don't foster or nourish in ourselves is the yin, the quiet, the meditative, the feminine. And we actually need a balance of both. Sure. The one is often more rewarded. So what we need to be able to do is to quiet the mind, quiet the self, so that we are open to listening to the messages, because most of us fill the space that would otherwise be available with messages with just more thoughts. Yeah. So it's really a projection of ego instead of listening to the divine signs and synchronicities that are available to us.
Right.
And I teach how to you know, co-create with the universe more consciously, and how to connect with your spirit guides and things like that.
Right. Well, I have to, for those of you out there, and if anyone's out there, you know, going, oh my gosh, this is so woo-woo, hold tight, just hold tight, because I have a whole program that's called It's a How-To, Not a Woo-Woo. Because when I left corporate, so 12 years ago, and started going out on my own, but also at the same time going through my shedding process, as my universe is based on, I kind of like resisted all of this spirituality. I am religious, and yet I didn't see, you know, kind of the difference when people would say, well, I'm not religious, I'm spiritual. And I'm like, oh, whatever, you know. But as I started getting into it, and I started really focusing on my mindset and my heart, as opposed to, like you said, the yang of everything that's out there. For those of you listening, questioning what we're talking about today, trust in what Travis is saying, and trust in his work, because it does open up a world for you. And what it's doing is, just like his title, Broken Open, it's opening you up to all the beauty and all the wonder of the world. And if you told me like even 8 years ago that I'd be saying words like this, I would have told you you're crazy. Because
if you would have told me 15 years ago I'd be on a talk show talking woo-woo, I would have told you were nuts. You know, I'm a lawyer by training. Right. I mean, my mindset is around science, and I'm actually have a pretty scientific mind. I feel like I have to see it to believe it. So when these clairvoyant experiences were happening, I couldn't deny it.
No.
You know, when I looked back at the circumstances of, you know, for example, a car accident that I had when drunk the day before coming out to my dad, when I had been asked by my mom not to. For 4 years, from 19 to 23, I was, you know, drinking heavily, going to college, and I was in a car accident. And I remember I blacked out at a bar in Spokane, Washington, where I grew up, and I remember waking up, and I was driving 95 miles an hour down a highway in northern Idaho, Highway 27, and I saw in my mind a church to my left. And it seemed abandoned. And I remember wanting to turn into the church. So I turned into the church at 95 miles an hour. And I rolled my car several times. And I ended up, you know, upside down. And then I remember the cops coming, and they actually called my mother, who, thank God, answered the phone. Obviously, it was a DUI situation. But the cop got a call that someone had driven their Toyota truck into Lake Coeur d'Alene, and he couldn't arrest me for a DUI because the jail was full. And so he gave me to my mom and said, I'm going to give him an inattentive driving ticket, the same as, you know, blowing a stop sign, and let you take him home. So that whole circumstance shouldn't have happened. One, I walked away without injury.
Thank God.
Yeah, thank God. And thank to the guides who held me and supported me in that accident, saying, you know, and the next day, my father, who's NRA gun-toting Republican cowboy, that's my father, hydraulic engineer. And And he said, Travis, what is going on? Something is up. And I came out to him. I said, and that was what was like, and he said, Trav, I'm so sorry this burden has been on you and your mom for so long, and now you can hug me and really mean it. And
I'm gonna cry.
And he hugged me and he said, I sort of had a hint when I would, talk to you in college, and I'd ask you if you have any girl problems, and you'd say, well, there are no girls, it's not a problem. But that whole thing was around my mother thinking that she would have to choose between a husband and a son.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and that was one of the experiences. And actually, I don't talk about that one in the book, because it's really, the book is really more about the story of the synchronicities. Right. That when we look back, we can say, look, what are the things that I have brought into my life, and why? Right. Because when you asked me earlier, it's like, well, what sparks the change? It's the desire for something different, but not necessarily knowing what to do with it. So you can actually do that at any time. You say with your voice to the universe, it's called a prayer in religious circles, but it's really just a manifesting tool. Help me. I don't know who you are, but I know you're there. And I really need help. Please show me in a way that I could easily understand what I need to know today. What can help me today, right now? Please bring some magic into my life. And you'll be amazed at what you can do with creating these sort of manifesting tools, because it's entirely possible. You do, and this is not just me making it up. It's not woo. It's actually science. I mean, there are studies that demonstrate this. I've had guests on my show for years talking about the science supporting this energy medicine practices. So, right. So it is scientific.
So other than, and I love that one. Whether it's, they call it prayer, whatever they call it, just ask for help to the universe. Mm-hmm. Yep. What other advice would you have for those that are having a tough time, that are struggling right now, tactical things that they could be doing in order to kind of make a shift in their life?
Yeah. So, it's interesting. I'll actually talk about this a little bit differently. So often I also pull animal cards. When I've worked with clients, I've had animals come up, and it was just like always the weirdest thing. I was like, why am I seeing a beaver? But then I shared information about what the beaver had for the person, and they were like, oh my God, I love beavers. I've always loved beavers, and I have one, a stuffed animal on my bed. I was like, okay, that's really weird, thanks. But I've been pulling the Wasp Spirit card for people lately. And the Wasp Spirit is really about letting ourselves know that sometimes life stings. And it doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. It doesn't mean that you suck. It doesn't mean that you're a failure. But sometimes there are just circumstances that just aren't ideal. And so when people feel like they're struggling or suffering, one, know that you're not alone. Know that you can always ask for help.
Yes.
Also, you aren't a failure because your circumstances don't meet your desires. It's a lesson that think about what we have all done collectively as a human population right now. We have created a world pandemic for everyone, all souls, to, in the same time, relative time span, go through a very similar experience of stop what you're doing, quiet, pay attention. What's going on? What are your values? Who do you love? What do you want to do? How do you want to spend your time? These are all very big questions that we are all asking ourselves. Yep. So when we're in those situations, a lot of fear can come up about, oh my God, I don't know what I'm going to do. What am I going to do? How am I going to pay my bills? I lost my job, and all of a sudden there's relief packages coming out. Creditors are allowing deferments, all this stuff that says, you can't get evicted. All of these things that are saying, no, we got you. And so what I would tell people is, look but don't stare. I mentioned that earlier. Yes, understand your circumstances might not be ideal, but don't dwell on them. Yep. Find, because you will always find something to be grateful for. The vibration frequency, talking woo-woo here, the frequency vibration of gratitude in the body is a very high level, similar to love. the two most highest in the body. So when we can bring ourselves out of shame, guilt, despair, fear, lower vibrational stuff, into love, appreciation, we're automatically shifting what we're putting out into the world and thus attracting. I would also say, take a look at your relationships. Most people are hanging on to relationships that don't serve them for convenience, or just for lack of a better term, for fear that of something different. You know, we all kind of get into these like ruts.
Right.
So I would say, be open to new ways of thinking about who you actually are, and think about what you want to do. And again, also ask for help, because that's okay. Because honestly, you know, when you start asking for help, your world will shift.
Automatically.
And it's okay not to know.
Yep. Yeah. How about, where does trust fit in? Because that word kept coming up to me as you were explaining those things that people could be doing. How much of it is someone's lack of self-trust, that they don't trust themselves?
A lot. In fact, and mostly, I mean, speaking from myself as someone who had spent much of their life in active addiction, I went to rehab not once, but twice. And in that circumstance, when you do something that you at some level know isn't good for you, but at another level, your brain and mind are hijacked by what I would say the dark night of the soul, you know, the shadow self, the ego, the thing that needs expression that isn't getting expression, so it sabotages. So I would say that trust is something that is important to develop with yourself. And when you do the things that you are in integrity with, in high integrity with, then that trust will develop much more quickly. And I feel like there's this shame. I feel shame energy around this idea around trust, because many of us are stuck and feel stuck. And then we blame ourselves. And I just posted something yesterday actually about, you know, self-judgment and self-criticism is a life sentence. And it's forgiveness that allows you to be, you know, let go for time served. Because you don't deserve to suffer anymore at all. So focus not on the past that cannot change, or the future that doesn't exist yet. All you can really do is focus on, what can I do right now to support and love myself? And that is going to help you with that trust question that you asked. So I appreciate you asked it. Yeah,
it just kept coming up for me as you were talking. So so if someone is out there, and I just know when I was in corporate and I was just running, it was almost like a robot, you know, and I never allowed my feelings to get into it, let alone my heart or my spirituality or anything. How can someone who's not quite, you know, tapping into their spirituality, how can they actually, you know, create or build a practice of their spirituality?
Yeah, so you mean somebody who might be agnostic or atheist, but curious around spirituality,
or just someone who, you know, they might say they're spiritual, but they're really, you know, not necessarily practicing it, and yet they're recognizing that there is something more out there that they need.
Oh, okay. So they're interested. So so it's so here's what I would say, is to start where you're at. You know, don't project something that you don't actually believe onto yourself. And at the same time, there's this idea around fake it till you make it. So it's kind of this like dance. But essentially what I'll say is that, two things. One, there are a ton of like books that kind of help explore different spiritual practices that might resonate with you. I didn't realize, you know, that some of the core beliefs that I held about myself as a human or a spirit actually are very much in line with Taoism and Buddhism than forms of Christianity or anything else. But really the messages are quite similar about spirit. One is our spirituality, I will just tell you, because I've seen people with lifetimes, right? So if I go to your Akashic records, which is the record of all of your incarnations, and I say, you know, how many has Bernadette had? And I say, okay, well, so I see 275, for example.
Woo!
And right? And so in each one of them, you've had a resonance, you've had a frequency, you've had a portion of your soul that inhabits that body. And so when I look at someone now, your incarnation now, is you have a unique vibrational frequency, like as unique as your thumbprint. And it is unique to you. So no one can tell you what or how to believe, because it's about what's true for you.
Mm-hmm.
And some people feel more connected to God when walking in the park than going to a church.
Sure.
And if that's you, then go to the park.
Right.
Go to the park every day and commune in whatever way is meaningful for you.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the first thing is notice that you have that question about what is my connection to spirit, and be curious. You know, I pulled a card yesterday for someone about the porcupine spirit. It's so funny, I'm talking about all these animals today. But it's called Take a Beginner Mind. You know, some of us we're supposed to be experts and we're supposed to be smart about this, and everybody with an opinion has a Twitter account, and they can be, you know, as educated. You know, I have a law degree, but people could Google something in 2 seconds and think that they're an expert in some area of law. I think it's about allowing yourself to be open to say, I don't have all the answers and I want to learn more. And then that sort of curiosity will sort of attract people. I think they talk about it, you know, when the student is ready, the mentor will appear.
Yes.
Find a physical person who you aspire to be like, or that resonates with you. Connect with them, you know, learn from them. We tend to feel like we're doing it all alone, but we're not designed that way.
Right.
You know, the opposite of addiction is connection. So if you feel that you are disconnected, alone, you know, small, reach out to someone who loves you unconditionally, because that's going to shift you right out of it. But ultimately, to your question, I say, you know, learn to develop whatever it is that your relationship with spirituality is that works for you. And if not, start exploring it. Yeah. And you'll find what does resonate with you. And you can actually ask that as a question. Hey, you never show me something that is meaningful for my spirit today. What would be helpful for me to know? And it would be helpful to like get out of the house. You know, obviously wear a mask, be safe, care for others, all that stuff, because we're still in this. It's so wild that I moved to LA last year from Seattle after 20 years there. And I've been here just over a year, and half of that year has been in a global pandemic. So I really have a lot of LA to explore.
Yes.
But anyway, it is. I really appreciate that, because you know, there's just so many unanswered questions out there. So
yeah. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Now we have more to talk about, but I also want to share with you something from Travis. So, you know, pen and paper if you need it, everyone. But he's offering a free 15-minute energy assessment for new clients, where he can quickly tune into your body and energy frequencies and provide specific, detailed information to help you heal, release blocks, and create more wellness in your life. And as well with the energy assessments, there's readings, coaching, mentoring, and healing sessions. And you can learn all about it at divineinsight.com/intuitive/sessions. All right. That's divineinsight.com/intuitive-sessions. And take advantage of it. I mean, why not? Getting, you know, I would say that to kind of add to his answer to the question of how can someone get, you know, into or start, you know, finding their spiritual practice, even reach out to someone like Travis and allow him to tap into your energy, you know, frequencies and your body frequencies, and help you get unblocked and help you to create more wellness in your life. That could lead to you then having room. I always look at it as, you know, let things go, shed, so you have room to bring in new, you know, more enriching, more beautiful, more healthier things into your spirit. But talking about intuitive sessions, how can someone learn, you know, because I'm always intrigued by it, and I have a degree of intuition. I always use my intuition. but I would all, love to find that other level. How can someone learn to, become more intuitive?
Yeah, thank you. And that is one of the most important questions that we all ask. And even as an intuitive, I have the same questions. Is this my own thought, or is this coming from a divine place? And so I will tell you, it's basically, it's your third eye, and energy frequency, metaphysical information literally comes in through the back of the head into a point at the center of your head, and this is your third eye. And this is where the brain is. So the brain sort of governs the five senses: the taste, smell, touch, feel, hear. And so what happens is information comes in through the back of the head, and then our brain wants to understand it and interpret it, often getting in the way, misinterpreting it. So what I will tell you is, it's a muscle like any other, your third eye. So you want to practice. You want to identify practices, and there are many that you can do. I teach them to folks, and that you can learn to develop your intuition more concretely. And I just want to say, people often think and expect to be clairvoyant, or they want clairvoyance to be the goal. And clairvoyance literally means clear seeing, is that I can see an image in my head that is outside of the third dimensional realm. So if I ask you to close your eyes right now and picture a tree, and I want you to picture the bark of the tree, the branches, the type of tree, where it is, you can see that tree in your mind, right?
Yep.
And I presented that image of the tree in your mind. So clairvoyance is you allowing the universe to present you with that picture in your mind, and your job is really just to notice what picture it is and start describing it. So energy wants to move. If it's frozen, it's stagnant, becomes cancerous in the body. Energy always moves, even if it's solid isn't solid, right? The particles are still moving.
Right.
And so I always tell people, you have to be inquisitive and ask questions and get the answers. And I always have a pad of paper with me when I'm doing channeling, because I want to start writing down what it is that I'm feeling or sensing from the question that I ask. And it's just something that requires practice.
Yeah. Awesome. All right.
Yeah, but also I'll tell you, there are also things you can do. Like if you get a message and the message is a laundry list, or it sounds parental, that's probably an ego projection and not from the universe. Remember, the universe and spirit, it comes from love. And so the messages are always going to be loving. And if they're not, they're coming from something else, often a self-judgment.
Oh, that's interesting. So you can actually categorize them,
Yeah, it requires a level of discernment.
Right. And self-awareness.
Yeah.
Self-awareness. All right, divineinsight.com. We have about a minute. What last juicy tip would you want to share with our listeners and our viewers?
Thank you. I think one of the most important things is to allow yourself to be authentic in what you're expressing. So if you're angry, allow yourself to be angry, and express it in a healthy way. But really focus on gratitude. I think I mentioned this before, but anytime I'm feeling like really off, is I go and I do something generous for somebody, because generosity and anger can exist simultaneously in the body. And so I think really the message is that you're not alone. You always have the love and support available to you. And it's important that you ask for whatever it is that you want, because it's available. Excuse me.
Absolutely.
I also want to mention, I have an Instagram account where I do Instagram lives. So if you follow me on Instagram @_Travis Taylor, I put a lot of stuff on there. I'll do some events coming up. I've been asked to put together a mentoring package for folks, actually yesterday. So,
nice.
So I really encourage folks to look at the Intuitive Sessions page, and you can book that free intuitive assessment, but also you can book a reading or a healing right there on the site. And I would be so honored and privileged to work with you if you're interested.
Absolutely. Travis Taylor, divineinsight.com, people. Look for his book as well, The Last Breath, and check out his chapter in it, Broken Open. I'm telling you, his story is just amazing, and it just helps, heal. It helps heal those that read and participate with him. And, like he said, and you summarized, ask. You are in a loving community here in the Shedding the Bitch community. Travis is now a part of it. Ask for his help. Go to divineinsight.com/intuitive/sessions and book one of those sessions. And then even look for the other healing sessions that he has. Thank you, Travis, so much for being part of the program. I so appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's been such a pleasure and a lot of fun. Thank you so much.
You are so welcome. And everyone, just FYI, we have a Goals to Riches Mastery Summit coming up on October 5th. I'm bringing together 8 experts in the field of goal achievement, leadership, mindset, productivity, overcoming adversity, and building a network. So you definitely want to participate in that. We're going to have some extra bonus sessions, and you might even see Travis's face again. So be sure to go to goalstorichesmastery.com and sign up. It's free. A day of unbelievable interviews with great tips and tools and resources and experts. So take a look for that. And then, of course, always come back here every Tuesday at noon Eastern time for episodes of Shedding the Bitch Radio. And we will see you next week. Bye, everybody. Bye, Travis.
Thank you for listening to Shedding the Bitch Radio with Bernadette Bose. Join Bernadette every Tuesday at noon Eastern as she helps you shift your bitches to riches. And the dialogue is always going on at sheddingthebitch.com. See you next week.